When kind-hearted teacher Emma Winters helps disoriented tech millionaire Lucas Chen find his way back to the city, it sparks an unexpected connection that changes both their lives. But when she discovers he's been deliberately getting lost just to spend time with her, Emma must decide if his intentions are genuine, or if she's just another conquest for a man who's used to buying anything he wants. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun filtered through the tall pines surrounding Oakridge Elementary School, casting dappled shadows across the playground, where children's laughter filled the air. Emma Winters stood at the edge of the playground, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, a whistle hanging around her neck as she supervised recess. Unlike the designer clothes worn by some of the other teachers who spent their paychecks trying to impress, Emma wore simple jeans and a comfortable sweater that reflected her practical, no-nonsense approach to life. "Ms. Winters," "Jason pushed me," called a small voice. Emma's warm brown eyes quickly found the source. Little Lily from her third-grade class, lower lip trembling but fighting back tears. "Come here, sweetie," Emma said, kneeling down to the child's level. As she comforted Lily and gently reminded Jason about playground rules, she demonstrated the quiet patience that had made her a favorite among both students and parents during her 7 years at Oakridge. At 32, Emma had built a life centered around her passion for teaching and her small but meaningful connections within the community. Her tiny cottage on the outskirts of Mapleton, bordering the vast Willowbrook Nature Reserve, was modest but perfectly suited to her needs. A garden out back, bookshelves lining the walls, and enough space for her rescue dog, Charlie, to roam comfortably. The bell rang, signaling the end of recess. "Line up, everyone," Emma called, smiling as her students scrambled to form their usual chaotic approximation of a straight line. She led them back inside, where their afternoon art project awaited. Hours later, as the final bell rang and the last student had been picked up, Emma gathered her materials and headed to her car. Friday afternoons were reserved for hiking in the nature reserve, her way of decompressing after a week of energetic third graders. Charlie would be waiting impatiently at home, ready for their weekly adventure. "Big plans this weekend, Emma?" asked Patricia, the school principal, as they walked to the parking lot together. "Just the usual," Emma replied with a genuine smile. "Hiking with Charlie, grading some papers, maybe finishing that novel I started last week." Patricia shook her head. "You know, you're allowed to have a social life too. When was the last time you went on a date?" Emma laughed, used to this familiar conversation. "I'm perfectly happy with my life as it is, Patricia. Not everyone needs romance to feel complete." The truth was more complicated. 5 years ago, Emma had been engaged to her college sweetheart, Daniel, who had slowly transformed from the thoughtful man she'd fallen in love with into someone obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder. Their relationship had gradually eroded as his priorities shifted, until she found herself alone at what was supposed to be their engagement dinner, receiving a text that he was stuck in a meeting. That was the night she'd returned his ring and promised herself never again to give her heart to someone who valued career success over genuine connection. At home, Charlie greeted her with enthusiastic barking and tail wagging. The golden retriever mix had been a rescue 3 years ago, abandoned and skittish when Emma had first met him at the shelter. Now he was her loyal companion, always ready for their nature adventures. "Ready for our hike, buddy?" she asked, changing into comfortable boots and a light jacket. Charlie's excited spinning was answer enough. 20 minutes later, they were deep in the Willowbrook Nature Reserve, following a familiar trail that wound through ancient trees and alongside a bubbling creek. Here, away from the classroom and surrounded by nature, Emma felt most at peace. Charlie bounded ahead, occasionally returning to check on her before racing off again to investigate interesting scents. The trail forked ahead. Their usual route went left, circling back toward the main entrance in a comfortable 4-mile loop. The right fork led deeper into the reserve, eventually connecting with more challenging trails that many hikers avoided. Emma hesitated, then smiled. "What do you think, Charlie? Should we try something new today?" The dog tilted his head, seeming to consider the question. "Right it is," Emma decided, feeling adventurous. The new path was beautiful, less traveled, with wildflowers growing along the edges and the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the canopy in golden rays. Emma took deep breaths of the fresh air, letting the week's stresses melt away. Charlie seemed equally delighted with the new territory, investigating every interesting rock and fallen log. They had been walking for nearly an hour when Emma realized the trail markers had become sparse and the path less defined. Consulting the small map she carried, she frowned. They should have reached another marked intersection by now, had she missed a turn. "I think we might be a bit turned around, Charlie," she admitted. The dog looked back at her with complete confidence in her navigational abilities. Emma checked her phone. No signal, as was often the case deep in the reserve. "Let's keep going a bit further. The path has to lead somewhere." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Another 20 minutes passed, and Emma's concern grew. The sun was lower now, and while it wouldn't be dark for a couple of hours yet, she had no desire to be in unfamiliar territory after sunset. Just as she was considering backtracking, Charlie's ears perked up, and he gave a short bark before trotting ahead with purpose. "Charlie, wait!" Emma called, hurrying after him. Rounding a bend in the trail, she found Charlie sitting expectantly beside a man who was seated on a fallen log, studying what appeared to be a trail map with intense concentration. The man looked up, startled by Charlie's sudden appearance. He was strikingly handsome, tall and athletic with dark hair that fell slightly across his forehead, wearing hiking clothes that were clearly expensive, but looked oddly new and unused. Something about him seemed out of place in the woods, like he belonged in a corporate boardroom rather than on a hiking trail. "Oh, hello there," the man said, his relief evident. "I think I'm a bit lost. Or a lot lost, to be honest." His smile was self-deprecating and surprisingly boyish for someone who appeared to be in his late 30s. "That makes two of us," Emma admitted, approaching with Charlie at her side. "I took a new trail today, and it seems I underestimated how confusing this part of the reserve can be." "Thank goodness I'm not the only one," the man said, standing and extending his hand. "I'm Lucas Chen." "Emma Winters," she replied, shaking his hand. "And this is Charlie, who apparently has a talent for finding fellow lost hikers." Lucas bent to pet Charlie, who immediately rolled over for a belly rub, making Emma laugh. "Traitor," she told the dog fondly. "He usually takes longer to warm up to strangers." "Dogs have always liked me," Lucas said, obliging Charlie with the requested belly rub. "Even though I've never had one of my own, my lifestyle doesn't really allow for pets." Emma noticed a flicker of something, regret, perhaps, cross his face, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. "So," Lucas said, straightening up, "any chance your superior navigation skills can get us both out of here? My phone has no signal, and this map might as well be in ancient Greek for all the good it's doing me." There was something refreshing about his admission of helplessness, without the male ego Emma had come to expect. "I do have a compass," she offered, pulling it from her pocket, "and I know the reserve borders Maple Road to the east. If we head that direction consistently, we should eventually hit the road, even if we're not at the main entrance." Lucas's face lit up. "A compass, of course. I knew I forgot something." He glanced at his expensive hiking boots sheepishly. "I'm not exactly an experienced outdoorsman, as you've probably guessed." "What brings you out here, then?" Emma asked as she oriented the compass and began leading them eastward, Charlie trotting happily between them. Lucas was quiet for a moment. "I needed space to think. Away from everything." He gestured vaguely. "I drove out this way, saw the reserve entrance, and thought a walk in nature might clear my head. I didn't plan to venture so far from the main trails." There was something in his tone, a weariness that seemed to go beyond physical exhaustion, that resonated with Emma. "The reserve has a way of drawing you in deeper than you intended," she said kindly. "But it's worth getting a little lost sometimes. The unexpected views can be the most beautiful." They walked in companionable silence for a while, with only the sounds of the forest around them. Emma found herself sneaking glances at Lucas. Despite his expensive clothing and obvious wealth, the watch on his wrist probably cost more than her monthly salary. There was something unassuming about him. He moved through the forest with careful steps, observing everything with curious eyes. "So what do you do, Emma Winters, when you're not rescuing hapless hikers?" Lucas asked, eventually. "I teach third grade at Oakridge Elementary," she replied. 7 years now." "A teacher," Lucas said with what seemed like genuine admiration. "That must be incredibly rewarding." "It is," Emma agreed. "Though not financially, as I'm sure you can imagine." She immediately regretted the comment. It sounded like she was fishing for information about his obvious wealth. But Lucas just laughed. "Money's overrated," he said, surprising her. "I mean, it's necessary, of course, but beyond covering the basics, it doesn't solve the important problems." Before Emma could respond, the trees thinned ahead, and the welcome sight of Maple Road appeared. "We made it!" she exclaimed, relieved. "Though we're about 2 miles south of the main entrance." Lucas looked up and down the empty rural road. "I don't suppose there's an Uber out here?" Emma couldn't help laughing. "Not a chance. Welcome to Mapleton's countryside." She checked the time. "The main entrance parking lot is that way. But it's quite a hike along the road. My car is at my house, just half a mile in the opposite direction. I could give you a ride back to your car if you'd like." Lucas hesitated, seeming to debate the propriety of accepting a ride from a stranger. "Charlie will be with us the whole time," Emma added lightly. "He's an excellent character, Judge, and he's already decided you're trustworthy." That brought the smile back to Lucas's face. "Well, I wouldn't want to disappoint Charlie." "Thank you, that would be very kind." As they walked along the road toward Emma's cottage, Lucas explained that he was only in the area for a few days, staying at the Mapleton Grand Hotel while attending to some business matters. "Mapleton Grand?" Emma raised her eyebrows. "That's quite a contrast from our little nature adventure. It's the fanciest place in town." Lucas shrugged. "It was the hotel my assistant booked. I didn't really think about it." The casual way he dismissed what would be a significant expense for most people confirmed Emma's suspicions about his financial status. But unlike most wealthy people she'd encountered, Lucas didn't seem to flaunt it or expect special treatment. Her cottage came into view, small but charming with its stone path and wildflower garden. "It's not much," Emma said, suddenly self-conscious about her modest home compared to what Lucas must be accustomed to. "It's wonderful," Lucas said with what sounded like genuine appreciation. "It looks like a real home." Inside, Charlie immediately headed for his water bowl, while Emma grabbed her car keys. "Sorry for the books everywhere," she said, noticing Lucas examining her overflowing bookshelves. "I've never met a book I could resist." Lucas picked up a well-worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird from a side table. "My favorite," he said quietly. "I read it every year." Emma stopped, keys in hand. "Mine too," she said, surprised by this unexpected connection. "Since I was 12. Their eyes met for a moment, and Emma felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. She quickly looked away. "We should go. I'm sure you have evening plans." During the drive to the reserve's main entrance, Emma learned that Lucas lived in San Francisco, that he worked in the tech industry, though he was vague about specifics, and that he had a younger sister who was studying marine biology. He asked thoughtful questions about her teaching, seeming genuinely interested in her stories about her students. When they arrived at the parking lot, Emma pulled up beside a sleek black Tesla, one of only 3 cars remaining. "That's me," Lucas said, pointing to the Tesla. "Thank you again for the rescue. I would probably still be wandering around lost if not for you and Charlie." "Just doing our good deed for the day," Emma replied lightly. "Enjoy the rest of your stay in Mapleton." Lucas paused with his hand on the door handle. Would it be too forward to ask if I could thank you properly? Dinner, perhaps? Tomorrow night? Emma was taken aback. Men like Lucas Chen didn't ask women like her to dinner. "Oh, that's really not necessary." "I know it's not necessary," Lucas said. "But I'd like to. Unless..." He hesitated. "Unless you're seeing someone?" "No, nothing like that," Emma said quickly. "It's just, I don't really date much. And you're only in town temporarily, so... Lucas nodded, accepting her explanation without pressing. Of course, I understand. He opened the car door, then paused again. But if you change your mind, I'll be at the Grand until Monday, just in case. As Emma drove home, she couldn't help replaying the interaction in her mind. There had been something genuine about Lucas Chen, despite his obvious wealth and the temporary nature of his presence in Mapleton. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine what dinner with him might be like, then firmly pushed the thought away. Men like Lucas lived in a different world. A world where people like Emma were temporary diversions, not serious considerations. Besides, she reminded herself, she was happy with her life exactly as it was. She didn't need complications or temporary connections that would inevitably end when Lucas returned to his real life. By the time she arrived home, Emma had convinced herself she'd made the right decision. She fed Charlie, heated up leftover pasta for dinner, and settled in with her book, determined to forget about Lucas Chen and his unexpected dinner invitation. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Emma woke early, as was her habit, and took Charlie for a quick walk before settling at her kitchen table with coffee and a stack of student art projects to evaluate. The simple normalcy of her routine was comforting after yesterday's unexpected adventure. Around noon, a knock at her door startled her. Charlie immediately raced to the entrance, tail wagging but barking protectively. Visitors were rare at Emma's cottage, especially unannounced ones. Through the window, she caught sight of a delivery van parked in her driveway. Opening the door, she found a courier holding a large, elegant gift basket overflowing with books, gourmet chocolates, and what appeared to be high-end dog treats. "Delivery for Emma Winters," the courier announced. "There must be some mistake," Emma said, confused. "I didn't order anything." "No mistake, ma'am. Already paid for, including a generous tip." He handed her the basket along with an envelope. "Have a nice day." Bewildered, Emma carried the basket inside and set it on her kitchen counter. Charlie immediately showed interest in the dog treats, his nose working overtime. Emma opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten note on hotel stationery. "Dear Emma and Charlie, thank you again for your rescue mission yesterday. The basket includes first editions of some classics I thought might be missing from your impressive collection, along with treats for both you and your four-legged hero. No strings attached, just a token of gratitude from a formerly lost hiker. Lucas Chen." Emma stared at the note, then examined the basket contents more carefully. The books were indeed first editions, beautiful leather-bound copies of Pride and Prejudice, The Great Gatsby, and 100 Years of Solitude. The chocolate was from an artisanal shop in San Francisco she'd once read about in a magazine. Even the dog treats were clearly premium quality, making Charlie whine with anticipation. Her first instinct was to return everything. It was too much, too expensive, too personal. How had he even found her address? But as she reread the note, she was struck by its simplicity and the no-strings-attached assurance. It didn't feel like he was trying to buy her interest, but rather expressing genuine thanks in a way that aligned with what he'd learned about her. After some deliberation, Emma decided to keep the basket. She gave Charlie one of the treats, which he devoured with enthusiasm, and set the beautiful books on her coffee table, admiring their craftsmanship. The chocolates she would savor slowly, one piece at a time. The rest of the weekend passed quietly. Emma finished grading, prepared lessons for the coming week, and tried not to think about Lucas Chen or wonder what he was doing at the Grand Hotel across town. By Sunday evening, she had almost convinced herself their paths would never cross again, and that was for the best. Monday morning brought a return to the comfortable routine of school. Emma arrived early, as always, preparing her classroom before the students arrived in a whirlwind of energy and chatter. She was in the middle of helping Jason with a math problem when Patricia appeared at her classroom door. "Emma, could I see you for a moment?" the principal asked. "Ms. Johnson can watch your class." Puzzled, Emma followed Patricia to the main office, where she was surprised to find Lucas Chen engaged in conversation with the school secretary. He was dressed more formally today. Dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt that made his eyes appear even more striking than she remembered. Mr. Chen has made a very generous offer to our school, Patricia explained, practically glowing with excitement. He's proposing to fund a complete technology upgrade for all classrooms, plus a STEM lab renovation. Emma stared at Lucas, who had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable under her gaze. It's a cause I believe in strongly, he said. Supporting education, especially in science and technology, has always been important to me. And what brings you specifically to Oakridge Elementary? Emma asked carefully. I had some business in the area, Lucas replied vaguely. And when I heard about the excellent teaching staff here, I wanted to see if I could make a positive impact. Patricia was practically bouncing with excitement. Isn't it wonderful, Emma? Mr. Chen would like a tour of the school, and I thought who better than our Teacher of the Year to show him around. Emma wanted to refuse, to tell Patricia she needed to get back to her students, but she could see how important this potential donation was to the principal. Of course, she said with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. As they walked down the hallway, out of Patricia's earshot, Emma turned to Lucas. This is why you're in Mapleton? To donate to a random elementary school? Lucas had the decency to look sheepish. Not initially. No, I really did have business here, checking out a potential office location for a new branch of my company. But when you mentioned you taught at Oakridge, I looked into the school and saw they could use some support. So, this is what? A way to buy dinner with me? Emma kept her voice low but couldn't hide her disappointment. No. Lucas looked genuinely distressed. The donation is happening regardless. I don't expect anything in return, Emma. I promise. When I saw the outdated technology in the school's online photos, I genuinely wanted to help. Emma studied his face, looking for signs of deception, but found only earnest concern. What exactly do you do, Lucas? You've been vague about that. He hesitated. I founded TechEdge Solutions. We develop educational software and hardware for schools. Emma stopped walking. TechEdge? The company that created the adaptive learning platform that's revolutionizing personalized education? Lucas nodded, seeming embarrassed by her recognition. That's us. Though it was a team effort, not just me. Emma's mind was reeling. TechEdge was a billion-dollar company, and its founder was standing in her school hallway, offering to fund a technology upgrade because... Why? Because he'd gotten lost in the woods and she'd helped him find his way? The tour, she said finally, regaining her composure. We should continue. For the next hour, Emma showed Lucas around Oakridge, introducing him to teachers and students. She couldn't help but notice how easily he connected with the children, getting down to their level and asking thoughtful questions about their projects. In her own classroom, he spent 20 minutes helping a struggling student understand a coding game, explaining concepts with patience and clarity. By the time they reached the outdated computer lab, the proposed site for the new STEM center, Emma found her initial skepticism softening. Lucas's excitement about the educational possibilities seemed genuine, his suggestions both practical and innovative. The children here deserve the same opportunities as kids in wealthy districts, he said quietly as they examined the aging computers. Technology shouldn't be a luxury in education. Emma nodded, remembering her own frustrations trying to incorporate modern teaching techniques with limited resources. That's always been my belief, too. As they concluded the tour near the front office, Lucas turned to her. Thank you for showing me around. This has only confirmed that Oakridge is exactly the kind of school TechEdge wants to support. It was my pleasure, Emma replied, surprised to find she meant it. The students will benefit enormously from your generosity. There was an awkward pause before Lucas spoke again. I'm extending my stay in Mapleton for a few more days to finalize the office location details. That dinner invitation is still open, if you're interested. Just as friends or colleagues, he added quickly. No pressure at all. Emma hesitated. Her initial assumptions about Lucas had been proven wrong at every turn. He wasn't using his wealth to manipulate her. He seemed to genuinely care about education and the students at her school. And there had been moments during the tour when she'd caught glimpses of a loneliness behind his confident exterior that resonated with something in herself. I'd like that, she found herself saying. Dinner would be nice. The smile that lit up Lucas's face made something warm flutter in Emma's chest. Great. Tomorrow night? I could pick you up around 7? 7 works, Emma agreed. But I'll meet you at the restaurant. Where were you thinking? If Lucas was disappointed by her maintaining this boundary, he didn't show it. How about Riverside Bistro? I've heard it's the best place in town. It is, Emma confirmed. Though I should warn you it's not the five-star dining you're probably used to. Lucas grinned. Even better. I'll make a reservation and see you there at 7. As he left, Emma couldn't help wondering if she'd made a mistake. She had carefully structured her life to avoid exactly this kind of complication. An attractive man who would inevitably return to his real life, leaving her behind. But there was something about Lucas Chen that made her want to take the risk, even knowing the likely outcome. Back in her classroom, Emma found herself distracted, her thoughts repeatedly drifting to tomorrow's dinner. She told herself it was just professional curiosity about a potential school benefactor, nothing more. But the flutter in her stomach when she thought of Lucas's smile suggested otherwise. After school, Emma drove straight to her best friend Olivia's house, needing advice. Olivia had been her confidant since college, the person who had helped her through the painful breakup with Daniel and countless other life challenges. Let me get this straight, Olivia said after Emma explained the situation. A handsome tech billionaire got lost in the woods, you rescued him, he sent you rare books as a thank you, and now he's donating a fortune to your school and taking you to dinner? Put that way, it sounded absurd. He's not exactly a billionaire, Emma protested weakly. Olivia raised an eyebrow. TechEdge is valued at over $3 billion, honey. I Googled while you were talking. Oh. Emma sank deeper into Olivia's couch. This is crazy, isn't it? Men like Lucas Chen don't seriously pursue elementary school teachers from small towns. Why not? Olivia challenged. You're brilliant, beautiful, and you genuinely care about making a difference. That's probably refreshing as hell for someone surrounded by people who only care about his money. But he'll be leaving soon, Emma pointed out. Back to his real life in San Francisco, Olivia shrugged. So enjoy the dinner for what it is. Not everything has to be forever, Em. Sometimes a connection is valuable even if it's temporary. Emma thought about this on her drive home. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe she could simply enjoy getting to know an interesting person without worrying about where it might lead. After all, it was just dinner. Tuesday evening found Emma standing in front of her bedroom mirror, uncharacteristically uncertain about her appearance. She changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple emerald green dress that she'd bought for a faculty dinner last year, but never worn. It was modest but flattering, highlighting her eyes and complementing her auburn hair, which she'd left down instead of in her usual practical ponytail. It's just dinner, she reminded her reflection. Professional, collegial. Charlie watched from the bedroom doorway, head tilted as if skeptical of her self-deception. Don't give me that look, Emma told the dog. I'll be home by 9 and we'll have our usual evening walk. The drive to Riverside Bistro gave Emma time to collect her thoughts. She would be friendly but maintain boundaries. She would thank Lucas properly for his generous donation to the school. And she would not, under any circumstances, allow herself to be charmed by a man who lived in an entirely different world and would be gone from Mapleton by the end of the week. The restaurant was Mapleton's finest, a converted mill overlooking the river, with exposed brick walls and soft lighting that created an intimate atmosphere. As Emma gave her name to the hostess, she spotted Lucas already seated at a corner table. He stood when he saw her, his face lighting up with a smile that made her carefully constructed resolve waver slightly. You look beautiful, he said simply as she approached. Thank you, Emma replied, taking the seat he pulled out for her. This is a lovely table. I requested one with a view of the river, Lucas explained. Though I have to admit, the view inside is even better. The compliment was delivered with such genuine warmth that Emma found herself blushing despite her determination to keep things professional. Lucas himself looked striking in a charcoal gray suit that was clearly tailored to his athletic frame, though he'd skipped the tie, giving him a more approachable appearance. How is Charlie this evening? Lucas asked as the waiter poured water for them both. Slightly judgmental about my outfit choices, Emma admitted with a small laugh. He's not used to seeing me in anything but jeans and sweaters. Well, I think Charlie should appreciate that his human cleans up remarkably well, Lucas said with a grin. Though I'm sure he'd be impressed by you in any attire. The conversation flowed easily as they studied the menus. Lucas asked thoughtful questions about Emma's day at school, demonstrating a surprising memory for the names of students she'd mentioned during yesterday's tour. When their waiter arrived to take their orders, Emma was startled to realize 15 minutes had passed in what felt like moments. So, Emma said after they'd ordered, tell me about TechEdge. How does someone decide to start an educational technology company? Lucas took a sip of his water, seeming to consider his answer carefully. It wasn't exactly a straight path, he admitted. I studied computer science at Stanford, then spent a few years at one of the big tech firms developing software that, honestly, the world didn't really need. What changed? My sister, May, Lucas said, his expression softening. She's 10 years younger than me, and she struggled in school, not because she wasn't bright, she's brilliant, but because traditional teaching methods didn't work for her learning style. I started developing adaptive learning programs specifically for her, and it made a huge difference. Emma nodded, understanding immediately. Every child learns differently. It's one of the biggest challenges in teaching, meeting each student where they are. Exactly, Lucas agreed enthusiastically. When I saw how the right technology could help May, I realized there must be millions of kids in the same situation. So I quit my job, used my savings to hire a small team, and started TechEdge. Our first platform was basically a more sophisticated version of what I created for May. That's incredible, Emma said, genuinely impressed. So your company grew from a desire to help someone you love. Lucas looked slightly embarrassed. That sounds more noble than it was. There were plenty of practical considerations too, market opportunity, potential profits. But the core motivation was helping students, Emma insisted. That makes all the difference. Too many educational products are developed by people who've never spent a day in a classroom and don't understand what teachers and students actually need. Their appetizers arrived, a shared plate of local artisan cheeses and bread, creating a brief pause in the conversation. As they began to eat, Emma noticed Lucas watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. Nothing, he said quickly, then seemed to reconsider. It's just refreshing. Talking to someone who's interested in the why of what I do, not the how much. How much? How much the company is worth, how much I personally am worth, Lucas clarified, a shadow crossing his face. In my world, that's usually the first thing people want to know. Emma considered this as she spread soft cheese on a piece of bread. That must make it difficult to know who your real friends are. It does, Lucas admitted. There's always that question in the back of my mind. Would this person be interested in me if I were just a regular software developer living in a studio apartment? And that's why you were vague about your company when we first met, Emma realized. You were testing to see how I'd react. Lucas had the grace to look slightly ashamed. I didn't plan it exactly, but yes. When you didn't press for details, when you treated me like just another lost hiker. It was nice. Well, for what it's worth, Emma said. I'd have helped you find your way regardless of your bank account. I know, Lucas replied softly. That's what makes you different. Their main courses arrived. Locally sourced trout for Emma, steak for Lucas, saving Emma from having to respond to the compliment that felt more meaningful than it should have. As they ate, the conversation turned to books, sparked by Lucas asking if she'd liked the first editions he'd sent. Their literary tastes overlapped considerably, leading to a spirited discussion about favorite authors and the books that had shaped their worldviews. I can't believe you've read The Heart's Invisible Furies too, Emma said, delighted to find someone who appreciated one of her favorite novels. None of my friends could get through it, but I thought it was beautiful and heartbreaking. The scene where Cyril reunites with his mother, Lucas nodded. I had to put the book down for a while after that. It was too real. Exactly, Emma exclaimed, then caught herself, realizing her voice had risen with enthusiasm. Sorry, I get carried away when talking about books I love. Don't apologize, Lucas said, his eyes warm. Your passion is captivating. The word hung between them, carrying more weight than a casual dinner conversation warranted. Emma took a sip of water, suddenly aware of how easy it would be to forget that this was temporary, that Lucas would soon return to his real life, leaving Mapleton and her behind. Tell me about your cottage, Lucas said, seeming to sense her need for a change of subject. It looks so peaceful, so different from anywhere I've lived. Grateful for the shift, Emma described how she'd found the cottage 4 years ago, falling in love with its character despite the needed repairs. The owner was an elderly woman moving to assisted living, she explained. She said she wanted someone who would love it as she had, so she accepted my offer even though there were higher ones. That sounds like a storyline from one of those novels we both enjoy, Lucas observed. Sometimes real life has those moments, Emma agreed, though they're rarer than in fiction. And what about your family? Lucas asked. Are they nearby? The question was innocent enough, but Emma felt the familiar pang that accompanied thoughts of family. No, she said quietly. My parents died in a car accident when I was in college. I don't have siblings. Lucas's face fell. I'm so sorry, Emma. That was thoughtless of me to ask. You couldn't have known, she assured him. It was 12 years ago. I've built a life for myself. My students, Charlie, friends like Olivia, they're my family now. Lucas reached across the table and briefly touched her hand, a gesture of comfort that lasted only seconds but sent warmth spreading up Emma's arm. Family is who we choose, he said. I think you've chosen well. As dessert arrived, a shared creme brulee that the waiter insisted was the chef's specialty, Emma found herself wondering about Lucas's life in San Francisco. The expensive suits and luxury cars suggested wealth, but he rarely mentioned material possessions. Instead, he spoke of his sister, his small team of original developers who had become friends, and the schools where Tech Edge had made a difference. What about you? Emma asked. Outside of work, what does Lucas Chen do for fun? He seemed surprised by the question. For fun? He repeated, as if the concept were foreign. I run, usually along the Embarcadero early in the morning. I read, as you know, and I'm on the board of a few educational nonprofits. But what about friends? Dating? Normal social activities? Emma pressed. Lucas broke the caramelized sugar on their dessert with a spoon, considering her question. I have business associates, he said slowly, and a few friends from college. Dating has been complicated. Complicated because of your schedule, or complicated because of your success? Emma asked perceptively. Both, Lucas admitted, but mostly the latter. The women I meet either want something from me, connections, financial security, status, or they're intimidated by what I've achieved. He looked up, meeting her eyes. Until recently, I'd forgotten what it feels like to connect with someone who sees past all that. The implication was clear, and Emma felt her pulse quicken. This was exactly the kind of moment she'd promised herself to avoid, the kind of connection that could lead to expectations neither of them could fulfill. Mapleton must seem very quiet compared to San Francisco, she said, deliberately steering the conversation back to safer ground. If Lucas noticed her evasion, he didn't comment on it. Instead, he played along, describing his fast-paced life in the city and how the contrast of Mapleton's tranquility had been unexpectedly appealing. There's something about small-town life that makes you reevaluate your priorities, he said. When I'm in the city, everything feels urgent. Emails, meetings, decisions. Here, watching the sunset over the river or hearing children laugh on the playground, those things seem more important somehow. Emma understood exactly what he meant. That's why I stayed, she said. After college, everyone expected me to teach in a bigger city, somewhere with more opportunities. But Mapleton has a way of reminding you what really matters. As they finished dessert, Emma glanced at her watch, surprised to find it was already 9:30. Their dinner had lasted over 2 hours, yet the time had passed in what felt like moments. I should probably head home, she said reluctantly. School morning tomorrow. Of course, Lucas agreed, signaling for the check. When it arrived, he smoothly handed over his credit card before Emma could reach for her wallet. Please, he said when she started to protest. You've given me the most enjoyable evening I've had in longer than I can remember. This is the least I can do. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool and clear, stars visible above in a way they never were in big cities. They stood awkwardly by Emma's car, neither quite ready to end the evening. Thank you for dinner, Emma said. And for the technology donation to Oakridge. The students will benefit enormously. It was my pleasure, Lucas replied. On both counts. He hesitated, then added, I'd like to see you again before I leave Mapleton. Maybe tomorrow evening? Emma knew she should decline, Another evening with Lucas would only make it harder when he inevitably left. But looking at him in the soft glow of the restaurant's exterior lights, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "I'd like that," she said instead. "But I have to warn you. Wednesday nights are usually my simple dinner and movie night at home with Charlie. Nothing fancy." Lucas's face lit up. "That sounds perfect. I could bring takeout? And Charlie and I can continue developing our friendship." "He'd like that," Emma said, knowing she wasn't just speaking for the dog. They agreed on a time, and as Emma drove home, she tried to ignore the warmth blooming in her chest. This was temporary, she reminded herself. A brief connection with a man from another world. She couldn't allow herself to forget that fundamental truth. Charlie greeted her enthusiastically when she arrived home, and as promised, she took him for a short walk despite the late hour. Under the starlit sky, with the familiar streets of Mapleton around her, Emma tried to make sense of her conflicted feelings. Lucas was unlike anyone she'd ever met, successful yet humble, brilliant yet kind. In another circumstance, another life, she might have allowed herself to imagine possibilities. But reality was clear. His life was in San Francisco, hers in Mapleton. Any connection between them was destined to be fleeting. "I'm just enjoying his company while he's here," she told Charlie as they walked. Nothing more. The dog looked up at her with knowing eyes that suggested he wasn't convinced. Wednesday morning arrived with unexpected excitement at Oakridge Elementary. Word had spread about the technology donation, and the staff room was buzzing with speculation about the mysterious benefactor. Emma tried to downplay her connection to Lucas, describing him simply as someone interested in educational equity, when asked how she knew him. Patricia, however, was not so easily deflected. She cornered Emma during lunch, her expression knowing. "So, dinner at Riverside Bistro with Mr. Chen," she said without preamble. "Madeline, the hostess, is my cousin. She said you two looked quite cozy." Emma felt her cheeks warm. "It was a professional dinner," she insisted. "We discussed his donation and educational philosophy." "For 2.5 hours?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "With, according to Madeline, a great deal of laughter and meaningful gazes." "There were no meaningful gazes," Emma protested, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Patricia's expression softened. "Emma, it's been 5 years since Daniel. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for you to connect with someone." "Lucas lives in San Francisco," Emma pointed out. "He runs a billion-dollar company. He's leaving Mapleton in a few days. Not exactly a foundation for a meaningful relationship." "Maybe not," Patricia conceded. "But sometimes the people who make the biggest impact on our lives are the ones who are only in them briefly." She patted Emma's arm. "Just don't shut down possibilities before they have a chance to develop." Emma carried Patricia's words with her throughout the afternoon, mulling them over as she taught her students about the water cycle. Was she shutting down possibilities out of fear? Or was she simply being realistic about the vast differences between her life and Lucas's? By the time she arrived home that evening, Emma had resolved to simply be present, to enjoy Lucas's company without anxious thoughts about the future or the inevitable goodbye that awaited them. She changed into comfortable jeans and a soft sweater, then set about tidying the cottage, though it was already neat. Lucas arrived precisely at 6:30, bearing bags of delicious-smelling Thai food and a small gift bag that he presented to Charlie. "Dog-safe peanut butter cookies from the gourmet pet bakery in town," he explained, as Charlie eagerly investigated the bag. "The owner assured me they're his best-selling item." "You didn't have to do that," Emma said, touched by his thoughtfulness. Lucas shrugged. "Charlie and I are friends now. Friends bring treats." He glanced around the cottage, taking in the cozy living room with its bookshelves and comfortable furniture. "I love your home," he said sincerely. "It feels lived in, not like a magazine spread." "Unlike your place in San Francisco, I imagine," Emma replied as she gathered plates for their dinner. "My apartment is functional," Lucas admitted. "I'm rarely there except to sleep, so I never bothered to make it feel like home." He set the food containers on Emma's small dining table. "My assistant decorated it. I think I've bought maybe 3 items for it myself." This glimpse into Lucas's life surprised Emma. She'd imagined a luxurious penthouse, meticulously designed to showcase his success. The reality, a barely personalized space where he merely existed rather than lived, seemed lonely. They settled at the table, serving themselves from the various containers of fragrant Thai dishes. Charlie lay nearby, contentedly chewing his new treat and keeping a hopeful eye on their dinner. "So what movie does Wednesday night usually feature?" Lucas asked as they ate. "Something light, usually," Emma replied. "I save the intense dramas for weekends when I have time to process them. Tonight I was thinking, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you seen it?" Lucas shook his head. "I don't watch many movies. Never seem to find the time." "It's about a man who lives vicariously through daydreams until circumstances force him to embark on a real adventure," Emma explained. "It's beautiful, amazing scenery, good message about living authentically." "Sounds perfect," Lucas said. "Though I feel I should warn you, I'm terrible at sitting still for movies. My sister says watching with me is torture because I ask too many questions." Emma laughed. "Noted. I promise to be patient with your questions if you promise to try to immerse yourself in the story." "Deal," Lucas agreed, his smile lighting up his face in a way that made Emma's heart skip. Dinner conversation flowed easily, ranging from Lucas's upcoming office expansion to Emma's plans for her students' science fair projects. Emma found herself repeatedly surprised by how naturally they connected, how their different worlds and experiences seemed to complement rather than divide them. After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch the movie, maintaining a respectful distance between them. Charlie, however, had other ideas. The dog jumped up and deliberately positioned himself so that Emma and Lucas were forced closer together, giving them an innocent look as if to say this arrangement was completely coincidental. "I think your dog is playing matchmaker," Lucas whispered as the opening credits began. "He's subtle like that," Emma replied dryly, though she made no move to create more space between them. True to his word, Lucas had questions throughout the film, but they were thoughtful ones that showed he was engaged with the story. Emma found his perspective interesting. He noticed details she'd missed in previous viewings and made connections she found insightful. When the scene came where Walter Mitty finally begins his real adventure, abandoning the safety of his structured life, Lucas grew noticeably quiet. Emma glanced over to find him watching intently, a complex emotion playing across his features. "You okay?" she asked softly. Lucas nodded without looking away from the screen. "Just thinking about paths not taken," he said. "Opportunities for adventure I've passed up because they didn't fit my 5-year plan." As the movie continued, Emma became increasingly aware of Lucas beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne, the warmth radiating from him in the small space, the way his hand rested mere inches from hers on the couch cushion. Charlie had fallen asleep, his head resting heavily on Lucas's leg, completely comfortable with this new human in their home. When the credits finally rolled, neither moved immediately to turn on the lights. In the blue glow of the television screen, Lucas turned to face Emma. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for sharing your Wednesday night tradition, for not treating me differently because of who I am or what I've achieved, for seeing me." The sincerity in his voice made Emma's breath catch. "Thank you for being someone worth seeing," she replied, the words barely above a whisper. Lucas's gaze dropped briefly to her lips, and for a heart-stopping moment, Emma thought he might kiss her. Instead, he gently moved Charlie's head and stood up. "I should go," he said, though his reluctance was evident. "You have school tomorrow, and I have calls starting at 6 a.m. Emma walked him to the door, suddenly aware of all the things unsaid between them. The growing connection neither had openly acknowledged, the inevitable separation looming just days away. At the threshold, Lucas turned to face her. "I've extended my stay again," he said abruptly. "The office location needs more evaluation than I expected." Emma's heart fluttered at Lucas's announcement. "How much longer will you be staying?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "Another week, possibly 2, Lucas replied, watching her reaction carefully. "The location is promising, but there are zoning considerations, renovation estimates." He trailed off, then admitted with a small smile. "And I found myself reluctant to leave so soon." The implication hung in the air between them, neither quite ready to acknowledge it directly. "Well," Emma said finally, "I'm sure Charlie will be pleased to have more visits from his new friend." Just Charlie? Lucas asked softly. Emma met his gaze. No, she admitted. Not just Charlie. Lucas's smile broadened. Good, because I was hoping we could spend more time together while I'm here. Maybe I could show you my potential office space tomorrow? Get your perspective? I'd like that, Emma replied. I finish at school around 4 o'clock. I'll pick you up, Lucas said. And this time, no arguing about it. After he left, Emma leaned against the closed door, her mind racing. Lucas Chen was extending his stay in Mapleton, at least partly because of her. The rational part of her brain warned that this only delayed the inevitable. He would still leave eventually. But another part, a part she'd nearly forgotten existed, whispered that some things were worth pursuing, even without guaranteed outcomes. Charlie nudged her leg with his nose, as if offering his canine wisdom on the matter. You like him too much, Emma told the dog, who wagged his tail in what seemed like agreement. We both do. The next day at school, Emma found it difficult to focus. Her students noticed her distraction, whispering and giggling when she accidentally referred to their math textbook as a science book, and then called Justin by Jason's name twice in a row. Ms. Winters has a boyfriend, Lily announced confidently during reading circle, causing the entire class to erupt in childish speculation. I do not have a boyfriend, Emma corrected, feeling her cheeks warm. I'm just a little tired today. My mom says people get tired when they're in love, another student offered helpfully, sending the class into fits of giggles again. By the time the final bell rang, Emma was more than ready to escape the perceptive eyes of her third graders. She hurried to her car to grab a change of clothes. She'd packed a nicer blouse to replace her casual teacher attire, and was just returning to the building when she spotted Lucas's Tesla pulling into the school parking lot. He stepped out, looking unfairly handsome in dark jeans and a light gray sweater that emphasized his athletic build. Several mothers picking up their children turned to stare, and Emma couldn't blame them. Lucas Chen had a presence that naturally drew attention, even when he wasn't trying. Hi, he said simply when he reached her, his smile making her momentarily forget they were standing in an elementary school parking lot surrounded by curious onlookers. Hi, she replied, suddenly feeling like one of her giggly students. I just need to grab my purse from my classroom. Lucas followed her inside, where they immediately encountered Patricia, who made no attempt to hide her interest in this development. Mr. Chen, how nice to see you again, the principal said warmly. I understand you're considering opening an office in Mapleton? That's right, Lucas confirmed. In fact, I'm taking Ms. Winters to see the space now. I value her perspective on whether it would suit our needs. Patricia's knowing look made Emma want to disappear into the floor. I'm sure Ms. Winters will have valuable insights, she said. She has excellent taste. After retrieving her purse and enduring more meaningful glances from colleagues, Emma finally escaped to Lucas's car. I apologize for the subtlety-free zone that is Oakridge Elementary, she said as they drove away. Small towns and privacy don't really go together. Lucas laughed. I don't mind. It's refreshing compared to the Silicon Valley rumor mill, which can make or break companies based on who was seen having coffee with whom. The potential office space was located in Mapleton's small but charming downtown area, a historic building that had once housed the town's first bank, then a bookstore, and had been sitting vacant for the past year. From the outside, its red brick facade and large windows had a timeless appeal that belied its need for interior renovation. It's beautiful, Emma said as Lucas unlocked the front door with a key the realtor had provided. But why Mapleton? Surely there are more strategic locations for a Tech Edge office. Several reasons, Lucas replied, holding the door for her. The cost is reasonable, which means more resources can go toward what matters, developing better educational tools. The central location makes it accessible to several school districts we want to work with. And, he added with a slight smile, I've discovered I like the atmosphere here. It feels like a place where people still value community and connection. Inside, the space was larger than it appeared from the street, with high ceilings, exposed brick walls, and hardwood floors that needed refinishing but had good bones. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the windows, giving the empty room a magical quality. What do you think? Lucas asked, watching Emma as she explored the space. I'd put workstations along that wall, a collaborative area here, perhaps a small testing lab in the back where teachers and students could try new programs and give feedback. Emma could visualize it perfectly, a space that blended technology with warmth, innovation with practicality. "It has wonderful potential," she said honestly, "and the location is perfect, walking distance from both schools in town." Lucas nodded, looking pleased. "That's what I thought, too. My team could have a direct connection with the educators and students who actually use our products." He gestured to a spiral staircase in the corner. "There's a small apartment upstairs that comes with the property. Currently just raw space, but it could be converted into something comfortable." "For visiting employees?" Emma asked. "Or for me, when I'm in town," Lucas said, his eyes meeting hers briefly before he looked away. "I'd be here fairly often to oversee the operation, at least initially." The implication made Emma's pulse quicken. Lucas was considering creating a reason to return to Mapleton regularly. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Dinner tonight? Need all the Lucas details?" "Everything okay?" Lucas asked, noticing her expression. "Just my friend Olivia," Emma explained. "We had plans for dinner tonight that I completely forgot about with everything that's been happening." "You should keep your plans," Lucas said immediately. "We can continue this another time." Emma hesitated, suddenly reluctant to end their time together. "Or, you could join us? Olivia would love to meet you, and she's been my best friend since college. She knows all my embarrassing stories." "In that case, I definitely want to meet her," Lucas replied with a grin. "Are you sure she wouldn't mind?" "Positive," Emma said, already texting Olivia back. The reply came almost instantly. "Bring him!" Reservation for 3 at Harvest Table at 7. As they left the building, Lucas locked the door carefully. "I think this is the one," he said, glancing back at the brick facade. "It feels right." Emma understood exactly what he meant. Sometimes places, like people, simply resonated with you in ways that defied logical explanation. Harvest Table was a farm-to-table restaurant on the outskirts of Mapleton, housed in a converted barn with a rustic chic atmosphere. Olivia was already seated when they arrived, her curly hair pulled back in a stylish updo that complemented her vibrant personality. She stood to greet them, her curious gaze taking in Lucas with undisguised interest. "So you're the mysterious billionaire who got lost in the woods," she said after introductions were made, ignoring Emma's mortified expression. "I have to say, the rumors didn't do you justice." "Olivia!" Emma hissed, but Lucas just laughed. "Not quite a billionaire," he corrected good-naturedly, "and definitely terrible with directions. Fortunately, your friend has more woodland navigation skills than I do." "Emma's good at finding lost things," Olivia said cryptically, raising her wine glass in a small toast. "It's one of her many talents." Dinner with Olivia proved to be exactly what Emma had feared and hoped for simultaneously. Her friend was direct, occasionally embarrassing, but ultimately supportive. She shared stories from their college days, asked Lucas probing questions about his life and business, and observed the chemistry between them with barely concealed delight. "So you're considering opening an office here in our little town," Olivia said as they enjoyed local apple pie for dessert. "That's quite a commitment for someone who just happened to get lost in our nature reserve." Lucas met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes getting lost leads you exactly where you need to be," he said. "I've spent years focused on expansion in major markets, but the schools that need our technology most are often in communities like Mapleton. It makes business sense, but it's also personally appealing." "Personally appealing?" Olivia repeated, glancing meaningfully at Emma. "I can imagine why." Later, after Lucas insisted on paying the bill despite Olivia's token protests, they stood in the restaurant's parking lot saying goodnight. Olivia hugged Emma tightly, whispering in her ear, "He's the real deal, Em. Don't overthink this." On the drive back to Emma's cottage, a comfortable silence settled between them. The evening had shifted something in their dynamic. Olivia's presence had normalized their connection, making it feel less like a fleeting holiday romance and more like the beginning of something with potential. "I like your friend," Lucas said as they neared Emma's home. "She cares about you a lot." "She's like the sister I never had," Emma agreed. "Though sometimes a slightly embarrassing one." "The story about you getting locked in the library overnight was my favorite," Lucas teased. Falling asleep in the classics section because you were too engrossed in Jane Austen to notice the closing announcements. Emma groaned. I was hoping you'd forgotten that one. Not a chance, Lucas replied, his voice warm with affection. It's perfectly you. At her cottage, Lucas walked her to the door, both of them lingering in the soft glow of the porch light. Charlie watched through the window, his tail wagging hopefully. Thank you for today, Lucas said, for your insight on the office space, for including me in your dinner plans, for everything. Thank you for extending your stay, Emma replied softly, even if it's partly for business reasons. Lucas stepped closer, his expression serious. Emma, I need you to know something. The business reasons are valid, but they're not why I'm staying longer. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I've never met anyone like you. Someone who makes me question everything I thought I wanted, who reminds me there's more to life than quarterly targets and market share. Emma's heart pounded as he continued, his voice low and sincere. I know we come from different worlds. I know whatever this is between us faces obstacles. But I haven't felt this alive, this present in my own life, in years. Maybe ever. His hand now cradled her cheek. I don't want to leave Mapleton without exploring what this could be. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility. Then, with a courage that surprised her, Emma rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss began tentatively, a gentle question, but quickly deepened as Lucas responded with barely restrained passion. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer as she wound her fingers through his hair. Time seemed suspended as they connected in this most fundamental way, discovering each other through touch and taste. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since I first saw you in the forest, he admitted. Even when you were hopelessly lost and I was sweaty from hiking? Emma teased. Especially then, Lucas replied. You were so competent, so unimpressed by me. It was incredibly attractive. Emma laughed softly, still cradled in his arms. Well, I'm impressed now, she murmured. That was quite a kiss, Mr. Chen. Inside, Charlie barked impatiently, breaking the spell. I should go, Lucas said reluctantly. But I want to see you tomorrow, and the day after, and however many days I have left in Mapleton. I'd like that, Emma replied, equally reluctant to end their evening. With a final, gentle kiss, Lucas departed, leaving Emma to face an excited Charlie and her own swirling emotions. As she prepared for bed that night, she found herself humming, a small but significant sign of the joy bubbling up inside her. The next week passed in a blur of stolen moments and deepening connection. Lucas attended Oakridge's science fair, genuinely interested in the students' projects and offering encouragement to even the most nervous presenters. He joined Emma and Charlie for their weekend hike, this time sticking strictly to the marked trails. They cooked dinner together in Emma's small kitchen, watched movies on her couch, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Through it all, Emma tried to maintain perspective. Lucas would eventually return to San Francisco, to his real life of board meetings and tech innovations. What they were sharing was beautiful but temporary, a brief intersection of two very different paths. Yet each day, this mental barrier became harder to maintain. Lucas integrated himself into her life with surprising ease, charming her friends, remembering her students' names, even fixing the leaky faucet in her kitchen that had been troubling her for months. He didn't just visit her world, he participated in it fully, bringing his own gifts while appreciating what was already there. On Friday afternoon, Emma was grading papers in her classroom when her phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Meet me at the office building at 6. Have something to show you. Intrigued, Emma finished her work and drove downtown. The former bank building looked different already. The windows had been cleaned, and a small sign in the front window read, Future Home of Tech Edge Solutions, Mapleton Innovation Center. Lucas met her at the door, practically buzzing with excitement. It's official, he announced. We closed on the building this morning. The Mapleton office is happening. Lucas, that's wonderful. Emma exclaimed, genuinely happy for him. "When do renovations begin?" "Next week," he replied, ushering her inside. "But that's not what I wanted to show you. Come upstairs." He led her up the spiral staircase to the apartment space above the office. When they reached the top, Emma gasped in surprise. The previously empty space now contained an architect's table with detailed renderings spread across it, showing plans for a beautiful one-bedroom apartment with modern amenities that respected the building's historic character. "What do you think?" Lucas asked, watching her face as she examined the drawings. "Too modern? Not modern enough?" "The architect can make adjustments." "It's beautiful," Emma said honestly. "The way it preserves the exposed brick and original windows while creating a contemporary living space is perfect." Lucas looked pleased. "I wanted something that would feel like a real home, not just a place to stay when I'm in town." He hesitated, then added, "I'll be here at least 1 week each month to oversee the new office, more initially while we're getting established." Emma's heart leapt at this news, even as she reminded herself not to read too much into it. "That's a lot of commuting," she observed. "Won't it be disruptive to your work in San Francisco?" "Actually, I've been reconsidering my role there," Lucas said, leaning against the architect's table. "I've been so focused on growing TechEdge that I've neglected what made me start the company in the first place, creating technology that actually helps students learn. I've been thinking about stepping back from day-to-day operations and focusing more on product development." "That's a big change," Emma said carefully. "Are you sure it's what you want?" Lucas looked at her with complete certainty. "I've never been more sure of anything. The past 2 weeks have reminded me what's important: connection, purpose, balance. I don't want to be the CEO who's so busy expanding the company that he forgets why he built it." He moved closer to Emma, taking her hands in his. "And I don't want to be the man who found something wonderful only to let it go because it didn't fit his predetermined plan." The implications of his words hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about business decisions, it was about them, about possibilities neither had been willing to fully acknowledge until now. "Lucas," Emma began, her voice uncertain, "what exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that meeting you has changed me," he replied simply, "made me reevaluate everything. I'm not proposing to upend your life or make promises we can't keep. I'm just asking for a chance to see where this goes, to find a way for our worlds to connect, rather than passing like ships in the night." Emma felt tears prickling behind her eyes. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you or us, but of hoping for something that seems impossible. Our lives are so different." "They are," Lucas agreed. "But different doesn't mean incompatible." He squeezed her hands gently. "Remember Walter Mitty? Sometimes the most amazing adventures come from taking that first, terrifying step into the unknown." Emma couldn't help smiling at the reference to the movie they'd watched together. "Using my own taste in films against me? That's fighting dirty, Mr. Chen." "I'll use whatever works," he replied with a grin. "Including reminding you that you've already helped one lost cause find his way. What's one more?" The joke broke the tension, and Emma found herself laughing even as tears spilled onto her cheeks. Lucas gently wiped them away, his touch tender. "I'm not asking for forever right now," he said softly. "Just for today and tomorrow, and the chance to figure out the rest together." Looking into his eyes, Emma saw something she recognized. The same loneliness she'd carried since losing her parents, the same yearning for connection that went beyond superficial relationships. In Lucas, despite all their differences, she'd found someone who understood what it meant to build a life on your own terms. "Okay," she whispered, making her decision. "One day at a time. Together." The smile that lit up Lucas's face was worth every moment of uncertainty, every fear she'd pushed through to reach this point. He pulled her into his arms, sealing their agreement with a kiss that promised adventures neither of them could yet imagine. As they stood in the empty space that would soon become part of Lucas's Mapleton life, Emma allowed herself to truly hope for the first time in years. The path ahead wasn't clear, and there would certainly be challenges in blending their different worlds. But standing there in Lucas's embrace, she knew with sudden clarity that some journeys were worth taking, even without a map. "So," Lucas said as they finally broke apart, his eyes twinkling with mischief, Should I get intentionally lost in the nature reserve again next weekend? Just to keep our origin story consistent? Emma laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. I think you found exactly where you're supposed to be, she replied, pulling him down for another kiss. No more getting lost necessary. But as Lucas held her close in the golden light of early evening, both knew the truth. Sometimes getting lost was the only way to find what you never knew you were looking for. 3 months later, the crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves as Emma walked through downtown Mapleton. The transformation of the old bank building was remarkable. Gone was the dusty emptiness, replaced by a vibrant hub of activity. The Tech Edge Mapleton Innovation Center had officially opened last week, bringing a dozen new jobs to the small town and creating a technology resource center that local schools were already utilizing. Emma paused across the street, watching people come and go from the building with its elegant new signage and refurbished facade. Pride swelled in her chest, not just for Lucas's accomplishment, but for what it meant for Mapleton. Children from Oakridge had already visited twice for coding workshops, their eyes wide with excitement as they explored technology many had never had access to before. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Meeting running late. Meet you at Riverside Bistro at 7 instead of 6:30? Emma smiled as she typed her reply. No problem. Take your time. She understood the demands of launching the new office, especially with Lucas still balancing responsibilities in San Francisco. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of renovations, hiring, and Lucas traveling back and forth while they navigated their evolving relationship. It hadn't been easy. There were weeks when Lucas was in San Francisco more than Mapleton, video calls replacing dinners, and the occasional disagreement about priorities and time management. But through it all, they'd maintained their commitment to honesty and taking each day as it came, building something stronger than Emma had dared to hope for. With time to spare before dinner, Emma decided to visit Olivia at her flower shop down the street. The bell above the door jingled as she entered Bloom and Grow, where her friend was arranging an elaborate, fall-themed centerpiece. "Just the person I wanted to see!" Olivia exclaimed, setting down her scissors. "I need a second opinion. Too many orange dahlias, or just enough?" Emma studied the arrangement. "Just enough." "It's beautiful, Liv. How's the town's favorite power couple today?" Olivia asked with a teasing smile. Despite Emma's protests, the label had stuck once the community realized the handsome tech executive was seriously dating their beloved third-grade teacher. "We're not a power couple," Emma insisted for the 100th time. "And we're fine. Lucas is just running late with meetings." Olivia's expression grew more serious. "Is the long-distance thing still working out? It's been, 3 months now?" "It's not exactly long-distance," Emma pointed out. "He's here at least 2 weeks each month. And yes, it's working better than I expected." She couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. "He's worth the complicated scheduling." "I've never seen you this happy," Olivia observed, returning to her flowers. "It suits you." Emma couldn't deny it. Despite the challenges of loving someone whose life was split between 2 cities, she'd found a joy in partnership with Lucas that she'd never thought possible. He challenged her to grow while respecting her independence, and she provided the grounding and perspective he'd been missing in his success-driven life. After chatting with Olivia for a while, Emma headed home to change for dinner. Charlie greeted her enthusiastically, as always, though he now split his loyalty between Emma and Lucas, who had become his favorite walking companion. Yes, he'll be here later," Emma assured the dog as she selected a burgundy dress that Lucas particularly liked. "You two can have your man time after dinner." At Riverside Bistro, Emma was surprised to be led not to their usual table but to a private dining room in the back. When she entered, she found Lucas waiting. The small space transformed with soft lighting and fall flowers similar to Olivia's arrangements. "What's all this?" she asked as Lucas greeted her with a kiss. "I wanted tonight to be special," he replied, helping her into her seat. "We have something to celebrate." "The successful office opening?" Emma guessed. "Because we already had champagne for that last week." Lucas shook his head, his eyes twinkling with a secret. "Something else, but let's enjoy dinner first." Throughout their meal, a specially prepared selection of their favorites from previous dinners at the bistro. Lucas seemed both excited and slightly nervous, checking his phone occasionally and glancing at his watch. "Is everything okay?" Emma finally asked as they finished their entrees. "You seem distracted." "Better than okay," Lucas assured her, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Emma, these past 3 months have been the happiest of my life. Even with the traveling and the chaos of opening the office, every moment with you has confirmed what I knew from the beginning, that finding you in those woods was the best thing that ever happened to me." Emma's heart quickened. "I feel the same way," she said softly, "though I sometimes wonder if you deliberately got lost that day." Lucas laughed. "I wish I were that clever, but I've been thinking a lot about fate, about how sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, even when you think you're hopelessly lost." He squeezed her hand gently. "I have something to tell you, and I want you to hear me out completely before you respond." Emma nodded, suddenly nervous herself. "I've been negotiating with the board for the past month," Lucas began, "about restructuring my role at TechEdge." He took a deep breath. "As of today, I'm officially stepping down as CEO. I'll remain as chairman of the board and chief innovation officer, but the day-to-day operations will be handled by Elaine Wong, my COO for the past 5 years. Emma stared at him in shock. "Lucas, your company is your life's work. Are you sure about this?" "That's just it," he replied earnestly. TechEdge was never supposed to be about building a corporate empire. It was about creating technology that helps children learn in ways that work for them. Somewhere along the way, I got caught up in growth metrics and market share, and I lost sight of why I started the company. He leaned forward, his expression animated in a way Emma had only seen when he talked about his original vision or worked directly with students. "This change means I can focus on product development and educational partnerships, the parts I'm passionate about. It also means," he added with significance, "that I'll be based primarily here in Mapleton, not San Francisco." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "You're moving here?" "Permanently," Lucas nodded. "The apartment above the office is almost finished. I'll still travel to San Francisco for board meetings and occasionally to other cities for conferences, but yes, Mapleton will be my home base." "Lucas, that's—" Emma struggled to find words that could encompass her emotions. "I'm thrilled, but I don't want you to make this decision because of me. Your company needs you." "My company needs me to be the visionary I was when I started it, not a stressed executive who's forgotten why he cares about educational technology," Lucas countered. "And yes, you're part of why Mapleton feels right. But it's more than that. This town, this community, it's helped me rediscover what matters." He stood suddenly, checking his watch again. "Actually, there's something I want to show you. Can we take a walk?" Curious, Emma followed him out of the restaurant into the crisp evening air. He led her toward the town square, where the autumn festival decorations were being set up for the weekend celebrations. As they approached, Emma noticed a small crowd gathered near the central gazebo, which was unusually illuminated for a weeknight. "Lucas, what's going on?" she asked, recognizing several of her students, their parents, Olivia, Patricia, and various townspeople among the gathered group. Instead of answering, Lucas guided her forward. As they reached the edge of the crowd, it parted to reveal the gazebo, which had been transformed with hundreds of tiny lights and fall flowers. A large screen had been set up inside, currently dark. "I have one more surprise," Lucas said, leading Emma to the center of the gazebo while the crowd watched with anticipation. "When I told the town council about my plans to make Mapleton my permanent home, they had an idea for a project that would benefit the community while honoring what brought me here in the first place." He gestured to someone in the crowd, and the screen illuminated with architectural renderings of a beautiful building nestled among trees, with walking paths and open spaces surrounding it. "The Mapleton Wilderness Education Center," Lucas announced, his voice carrying to the gathered crowd. "A place where children and adults can learn about local ecology, conservation, and environmental science, with indoor classrooms and outdoor exploration spaces, including accessible trails for those with mobility challenges." Emma stared at the images, taking in the details of the proposed center, the learning labs, the nature-inspired design, the carefully preserved natural surroundings. It will be built at the edge of the Willowbrook Nature Reserve, Lucas continued, on land the town has owned for years but never developed. The Tech Edge Foundation will fund the construction and initial staffing, while ongoing operations will be supported by a community endowment. He turned to Emma, his eyes shining with emotion. And the council unanimously agreed that the educational director should be someone who embodies both teaching excellence and a love for the natural world. He took her hands in his. They want you, Emma, if you're interested. The crowd murmured their approval as Emma tried to process what she was hearing. A center that combined her passion for teaching with her love of nature, right here in Mapleton. A chance to expand her impact beyond her classroom while remaining rooted in the community she loved. Me? She finally managed. But I don't have experience running something like this. You have exactly the experience needed, Lucas countered. You understand how children learn, you know this community, and you've been hiking these woods for years. The rest, you can learn, and I'll be right beside you, helping with the technology integration and whatever else you need. Patricia stepped forward from the crowd. The school board has already approved a special arrangement, she added. You could remain at Oakridge part-time while developing the center's educational programs. We believe in this vision, Emma, and we believe in you. Emma looked around at the expectant faces, her students, her friends, the community that had been her home for so long. Then back at Lucas, who was watching her with such hope and love that it took her breath away. This is overwhelming, she admitted, in the best possible way. You don't have to decide right now, Lucas assured her. The project won't break ground until spring, but I wanted you to know that your future in Mapleton can be whatever you want it to be. Teacher, educational director, both, something else entirely. I just want to be part of that future, whatever shape it takes. The crowd had gone quiet, sensing the personal moment unfolding before them. Emma felt tears of joy gathering in her eyes as the full magnitude of what Lucas had created struck her. Not just a building or a job opportunity, but a bridge between their worlds, a way for both of them to pursue their passions while building a life together. Yes, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. Yes to the center. Yes to this incredible opportunity. The crowd erupted in cheers as Lucas pulled her into an embrace, lifting her slightly off her feet in his enthusiasm. When he set her down, his expression had shifted to one of nervous determination. There's one more thing, he said, reaching into his pocket. The crowd fell silent again as Lucas sank to one knee before her, holding a small velvet box. Emma's hands flew to her mouth, her heart pounding as Lucas looked up at her with eyes full of love and certainty. Emma Winters, he began, his voice steady despite the emotions playing across his face. From the moment you found me lost in the woods, you've been helping me find my way, not just physically, but to the person I want to be, to the life that truly matters. He opened the box to reveal a stunning yet understated ring, a solitaire diamond in a vintage setting that somehow perfectly captured Emma's blend of practicality and hidden romanticism. I know it's only been 3 months, Lucas continued, and if you think it's too soon, I'll wait. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you, Emma. I love your compassion, your wisdom, your ability to find joy in simple moments. I love how you've shown me what really matters, how you've helped me rediscover my purpose. He took a deep breath. I don't want to spend another day wondering if you'll be part of my forever. Will you marry me? Time seemed to stand still as Emma looked down at this remarkable man, the successful tech executive who had wandered into her forest and her heart, who had chosen to reorient his entire life around what truly mattered, who saw her exactly as she was and loved her for it. Yes, she whispered, then louder for all to hear. Yes, Lucas Chen, I will marry you. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers as Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her. The autumn evening transformed into a celebration neither of them had anticipated when they woke that morning. Later, after the impromptu engagement party had moved to the town's community center and well-wishers had offered their congratulations, Emma and Lucas found a quiet moment alone in the gazebo. Charlie, who Olivia had brought to join the festivities, lay contentedly at their feet. Are you happy? Lucas asked softly, his arm around her shoulders as they looked out at the town square. Incredibly, Emma replied, leaning into him. Though I'm still processing everything. The center, the engagement. It's a lot for one evening. Lucas laughed. Too much? No, Emma said thoughtfully. Just right, actually. It feels like all the pieces falling into place. That's how I feel too, Lucas agreed. Like I've finally found where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be with. Emma looked up at him, this man who had, quite literally, gotten lost to find her. You know, when we first met, I was so certain people from different worlds couldn't build something lasting. That someone like you would inevitably return to your fast-paced life and forget about Mapleton, forget about me. Never, Lucas said firmly. You taught me that success isn't measured by company valuations or market share. It's found in connections, in purpose, in waking up each day excited about the difference you're making, however small or large that might be. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, tenderly. You didn't just find me in those woods, Emma. You helped me find myself. Emma smiled, remembering their journey, from that first meeting on the forest trail to this moment of commitment and shared vision. We found each other, she corrected gently, and in doing so, we both found our way. As they sat together in the illuminated gazebo, autumn leaves occasionally drifting down around them, Emma marveled at how life's most meaningful journeys often began with unexpected detours. Lucas had entered the forest that day, lost and searching, not just for a literal path, but for meaning beyond his success. She had been hiding in her comfortable routine, afraid to risk her heart again. Yet here they were, planning a future neither could have imagined just months ago, a future that honored both their individual paths and the one they would now walk together. What are you thinking about? Lucas asked, noticing her contemplative expression. About how sometimes getting lost is the only way to find what you're really looking for. Emma replied, squeezing his hand. And how grateful I am that you have a terrible sense of direction. Lucas laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet evening. I'm thinking of getting intentionally lost again this weekend, he teased, just to see where it leads us next. I have a better idea, Emma countered, her eyes sparkling. How about this time we explore together? No getting lost necessary. I like that plan, Lucas agreed, leaning down to kiss her softly. As long as we're together, I'm exactly where I need to be. As they walked home, hand in hand, Charlie trotting happily beside them, the autumn stars shone brightly overhead. The path ahead would hold challenges and adjustments as they blended their lives, but Emma felt a certainty she'd never known before. Some connections transcended different backgrounds and lifestyles, creating something stronger and more beautiful precisely because of those differences. In helping a lost millionaire find his way that spring afternoon, Emma had unwittingly found her own path to a future brighter than she'd dared to dream. And Lucas, in his willingness to reconsider everything he thought he wanted, had discovered that true wealth lay not in business success but in authentic connection and purpose. The cottage came into view, warm light spilling from its windows into the darkness. Tomorrow would bring wedding plans and center designs, curriculum development and community engagement, but tonight was for savoring this moment of clarity and commitment, this beautiful certainty that sometimes life's most precious treasures were found when you least expected them, even in the depths of a forest where, just months ago, two souls had intersected on paths they never knew they shared. As Lucas held open the gate to Emma's garden, their garden now, in many ways, he paused, looking at the woman who had transformed his life with her quiet strength and genuine heart. Thank you, he said simply. For what? Emma asked, tilting her head. For finding me, Lucas replied. In every way that matters. Emma smiled, the autumn moonlight illuminating her face as she reached up to touch his cheek. Some people are worth looking for, she said softly, even when they don't know they're lost. And as they crossed the threshold together, both knew with perfect clarity that they had finally, truly found their way home. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.